Once upon a time in the wild and windswept lands of Scandinavia, there lived a people both feared and admired, the Vikings. But behind the long ships and axes, there were men and women, families, traditions, loves, and secrets. This is the story of Ragnar, his wife Ingrid, and their sons, explorers of the north, whose names would echo across fjords and forests, seas and mountains. Ragnar, the son of a Norwegian chieftain, grew up in a village tucked between towering snow-capped mountains and icy fjords. Every morning he helped his father mend fishing nets and prepare traps for seals and salmon, while his mother Freya ground barley for porridge and smoked fish for the long winters. Their house, constructed from timber and turf, was modest but warm, with a central hearth radiating heat that kept the snow and wind at bay. The walls were carved with runes, telling the stories of ancestors and heroes. The villagers paid great attention to hygiene. They bathed in the icy rivers, combed their hair with antler combs, and anointed their skin with herbal oils. Children learned to swim almost as soon as they could walk. Dogs, goats, and chickens were essential companions and sources of food, guarding the village or providing milk and eggs. Ragnar's tunic of wool, sturdy leather boots, and a belt adorned with tribal motifs marked him as a young man ready for work and adventure. He helped shape wood into oars and shields, repaired tools, and learned to navigate the rugged landscape of fjords, forests, and mountains. Meals were simple yet nourishing. In the morning, villagers ate barley bread, cheese, and dried fish. In the evenings, thick stews of meat and root vegetables simmered over the hearth. During feasts, pigs or oxen were sacrificed, and mead, a sweet fermented honey drink, flowed freely. During the winter solstice, the Yule festival brought the entire village together. They sang songs to Odin, Thor, and Freya, danced in the snow, and made offerings for fertility, prosperity, and protection. Freya, Ragnar's mother, doubled as healer and spiritual guide, preparing herbal potions, soothing wounds with honey poultices, and calming restless spirits through rituals. Even ordinary meals held meaning. Foods were preserved through smoking, drying, and fermentation, ensuring survival through long winters. Barley, oats, cheese, dried meat, berries, and roots were daily staples, while special spices, honey, and imported goods from distant lands were reserved for guests and ceremonies. At 18, Ragnar fell in love with Ingrid, a young woman with silver hair and a fierce spirit. Viking women held rights and responsibilities. They could own land, manage trade, engage in battle, and even divorce if necessary. Ingrid, a shield maiden, was a skilled and respected warrior. Their marriage was marked by tradition, hands tied by a ceremonial cord, vows exchanged before the sacred fire. Gifts were exchanged, jewelry, weapons, cattle, and fabrics, each carrying symbolic meaning. The young couple slept on bear skins, blessed by the village priest, and began building a household and family together. Women like Ingrid and Freya managed homes, taught children, crafted clothing and tools, and acted as advisors in village matters. Their influence extended beyond the hearth. They were integral to the prosperity and survival of their communities. Rituals and blessings accompanied births, marriages, and harvests, weaving spirituality into everyday life. As Ragnar grew into a chieftain, he decided to journey westward, seeking lands unknown. With Leif, son of Eric the Red, he sailed on a long ship carved with a dragon's head, strong enough to withstand storms and waves. The northern seas tested them. Nights were frigid, winds howled, and waves crashed against the ship. Yet they pressed forward, navigating by the stars, the sun, and landmarks along the coast. They discovered lands lush and foreign, England, France, and then Vinland, a green land beyond the ocean. Along the way, they observed unfamiliar animals, strange plants, and navigational hazards. One night, a tribe attacked and Ragnar was wounded, but Ingrid, wielding a flaming axe, fought fiercely to defend them. Food was scarce and precious. Dried fish, grains, and occasional game were rationed carefully. Storms forced improvisation, finding shelter on rocky islands, building fires and drying clothes to survive the cold and wet. Each obstacle strengthened their resolve and deepened their knowledge of the world beyond Scandinavia. Ragnar and Ingrid had three sons, Bjorn, Eric, and Harald, each carrying within them a spark of the North, yet each destined to follow a different path across the seas of fate. Bjorn, the eldest, inherited his father's strength and unshakable will. From a young age, he trained with the warriors, learning to wield the axe and the sword with unmatched precision. Eric, the second son, was different. Thoughtful, curious, drawn not to conquest, but to understanding. While his brothers trained for war, he spent hours observing the stars and studying maps drawn by travelers. He learned to trade, to negotiate with foreign chieftains and merchants. Harald, the youngest, inherited both courage and imagination. Fascinated by his mother Ingrid's stories, he sought not only to explore the seas, but also to understand the world's mysteries. He charted coastlines, recorded celestial positions, and marked dangerous reefs on hand-carved maps. Together, the three brothers formed a living legend, known as the Sons of the Wind. They built longships faster and stronger than any before. Their sails caught not only the northern breeze, but the promise of discovery. They ventured to Iceland, Greenland, and perhaps even beyond, into lands lost to time. When Ragnar grew older, he married again. His second wife, Sigrid, came from a distant northern tribe, known for their wisdom and fierce independence. With her, Ragnar had another son, Sigurd. He was intelligent, ambitious, and unyielding, yet he often found himself at odds with his older brothers. Bjorn valued tradition and honor. Eric sought peace and trade, while Sigurd thirsted for power and glory. He believed that the North should rule all seas. Their disagreements sometimes grew fierce, not of hatred, but of vision. The brothers loved each other, yet the world had begun to change, and each saw a different path forward. Some nights they gathered around the great fire in their father's hall, staring at the flames, each lost in thought, one dreaming of conquest, another of peace, and another of discovery. Still, when danger threatened their homeland, the Sons of the Wind stood together. They defended their village from rival clans, rebuilt ships after devastating storms, and kept alive the teachings of their parents: strength, wisdom, and unity. For though their journeys took them to the ends of the world, they always returned to the fjords, to the songs of their people, to the whispering winds that told tales of their ancestors. Years passed, and the Sons of Ragnar became legends in their own right. When they returned home, their ships were filled with stories, not just treasures. Ragnar, now older and wiser, welcomed them with pride. He built a great hall of remembrance, a massive structure of carved wood and stone. Inside, every beam was engraved with runes recounting voyages, battles, and the names of those who had perished at sea. Life in the village continued its rhythm. Women spun wool, tanned hides, and brewed ale. Men repaired boats, built fences, and prepared for new expeditions. The community was self-sufficient and proud. They grew barley and rye, kept bees for honey, and gathered herbs for medicine. Ingrid, now respected as a wise leader and healer, taught the young women how to craft salves, charms, and runes. She believed that strength alone was not enough. Knowledge and compassion were the true shields of a people. In winter, when storms closed the fjords and the sea roared angrily, the Vikings turned inward, sharing food, stories, and warmth. They played games of strategy on carved boards and embroidered scenes from their travels on tapestries that adorned their homes. The Sons of Ragnar did not stop at the edges of their maps. Bjorn sailed south to the warm coasts of the Mediterranean, where marble cities shimmered under the sun. He traded amber and furs for gold and silk, marveling at temples and palaces, unlike anything in the north. Eric journeyed eastward through rivers and forests, establishing trade routes that would one day become legendary. He brought back silver coins, strange spices, and tales of vast cities surrounded by walls. Harold, ever the dreamer, continued west. Some said he reached lands no Norseman had ever seen before, where forests stretched endlessly and rivers sparkled with fish unknown to the northern seas. Sigurd, however, grew restless. He built his own army, seeking to forge a new kingdom. Though his ambitions sometimes clashed with his brothers, his courage and brilliance could not be denied. His name became both feared and admired, a reminder that even within one family, the Viking spirit could burn in many different ways. When Ragnar's final day came, the skies were calm. His family gathered as the old chieftain lay upon his boat, surrounded by his weapons, shields, and offerings. A golden arm ring, a carved figure of Odin, and a lock of Ingrid's hair. As the flames consumed the ship, the villagers sang songs of farewell, their voices carried by the wind across the water. The fire reflected on the waves like the light of 1,000 suns. Ingrid stood tall, tears glimmering like frost on her cheeks. She became the new guardian of their people, leading with wisdom, patience, and courage. Under her guidance, the village thrived, its name whispered by traders and sailors across distant lands. The memory of Ragnar lived on, in the hearts of his children, in the carvings on wooden halls, in the stars above the northern sky. The sons of the wind continued their voyages, carrying their father's spirit wherever they went. And when storms howled through the fjords and the fire crackled in winter halls, the people would say they could still hear Ragnar's voice in the wind, a whisper of courage, adventure, and the eternal bond between sea and soul.